Alright, so the Embark developers gave us some insights on the direction that they want to take the game in the future through the Reddit AMA, and I'm here to break down each reply to you and give my reaction on the topics. Starting off with the major question asked by Slepiuri, who wanted to know, is the introduction of a text chat planned? This is something that I did mention, of course, before in my videos if you've been watching, and the great news is Embark are planning to get text chat added into Season 3. The advantages of text chat can definitely be helpful for those that prefer to type instead of use voice comms, obviously, and in some cases can allow players to connect and share experiences during their gameplay. Obviously, flaming is the main disadvantage in question, but this is very prominent in most competitive games. I do think that Embark will or should have, punishing features in place for those that step too far across the line, but I do hope that it's not completely strict. I know it's hard to balance or draw a line between what is allowed and what isn't in some cases, so obviously I'm not going to be the one here to define that, but I do feel that some games can be quite strict and sometimes take you out of context when you may not be intending to be toxic, but hopefully they do obviously make muting available on day one of this feature anyway. The next question is from Turkey, who states that many players think that the finals is an exciting game for esports. Is there anything you can share about a potential esports future for the finals? Now, this is a question that we've seen before and answered if you've been following my channel for a while now, and we know that it's obviously on Embark Studios' radar. I think features like this are on most FPS games' radars, to be honest, but really it's kind of down to a few factors in actually having this to grow and work. Firstly, we don't even have a spectator mode in private matches. I did mistakenly thought that there was one in the game, in the patch notes previously. Basically, it says like there was an option to opt out of the game, so I thought, that meant that you could spectate. Now, when I was streaming our community matches on YouTube, Rob and some of the Embark team did actually pop in to check out the gameplay and mention that this is a feature coming very shortly, possibly at or even just before Season 3's start. So this is great news to progress the viewership side of the scene. I've mentioned before when talking with Lyric, who is an incredible player from Apex Legends and does dominate pretty damn well in the finals, that the esports scene is likely needing to take a kind of grassroots approach, which essentially means that Embark really want to see esports grow from us, the community, rather than like a big org coming over with like a blank check basically monopolizing the entire scene. We obviously have some early attempts at this. One of them is Breakout Esports. Again, we mentioned this before. They're hosting splits into championships at the end of the year for people that qualify, and I think that obviously with the additions of private matches and spectator modes, it's way better for both viewer and player rather than just playing in public lobbies, which I actually wanted to take a quick mention on. There's apparently some Discord servers out there still hosting public-based Q-Snipe lobbies, which I feel is a pretty negative experience for the casual competitive players. If you don't know, Q-Sniping is when players count down from, let's say, 5 to 1, for example, and then basically multiple teams search for a match at the same time with the objective of filling up an entire lobby of teams facing off against each other. Now, obviously, I didn't mind this before private matches were in the game because there was literally no alternative to playing the game against others at your skill level or at the level that you want to play, but now there is, which is obviously private matches. I mean, sometimes I literally witnessed some players helping each other qualify on different teams just so they could continue playing against each other in future rounds. I'm kind of leaving this open and in the air, that it's something to pay attention to because I believe it really does kind of make this a negative experience, especially if you're unlucky to be filled in as either a solo, duo, or trio against these players. Mini rant over. Next up is a great question from Lenizen, who asked, is a kill cam something that has been considered? And obviously this is something that I actually see you guys commenting on my video a few times, and I think that it's a good question for sure. So Embark basically have a response which is essentially taking aim at the game's nature. They state that we definitely want to build this, and we have for a long time. It's something that we'll make at some point for sure, and we realized that it's important. Now, this topic has actually come up a lot with games like Valorant, for example, with kind of like a replay like demo mode. If you didn't realize, obviously, Valorant is actually ran on Unreal Engine 4, where the finals is ran on Unreal Engine 5. There was actually a great video from a YouTuber recently called That Carrot Fella, who essentially built a very simplistic version of a replay mode, taking Valorant as the base inspiration on Unreal Engine 4, and did a pretty damn good job. So the difference is that finals, its server-side destruction is a huge talking point. This means that obviously elements of the game's environment can be altered or destroyed dynamically, which then affects our gameplay and strategy. So if we did implement a kind of kill cam system in such context, it's not just about capturing our video footage, right? To have a replay system, you kind of need to record every single piece of data about those environmental changes, those player movements and actions accurately. Now, the main challenges for Embark to tackle actually starts off with data intensity. So unlike technically simple games where like their environments are quite static, for example like Valorant, the finals needs to handle the recording of complex interactions and environmental destruction. This can lead to a massive amount of data that needs to be captured and stored, significantly more than a typical shooter. Now, having just kill cams takes that burden off massively compared to an entire match's replay mode, because obviously then you can dynamically delete the data on the fly. So say, for example, like a solution could be that Embark could record the actions of players every second, and obviously the server and the destruction, but after 10 seconds of that gameplay has gone by without an elimination, then that data can obviously be deleted. Think of a system similar to your current game capture on consoles or PC. We have like a share button which clips in the last, let's say, 3 minutes of gameplay, and any further data from that gets overwritten with the new data happening in real time. It saves resources like storage and is very efficient in being able to capture the moment you want, say if you got a really nice triple kill. The next problem is, of course, server load. Now, we know that destruction is obviously server-side, we've mentioned that multiple times, and it's very costly to keep running per instance. The servers actually handle the resources to manage the destruction on their side rather than yours, which allows some older systems to actually run the game. This is because they need to ensure that the replay accurately represents what actually happened during the gameplay, which is crucial, especially in competitive games. This would obviously include needing resources to capture player positioning, environmental states after destruction, and exact timing of actions for things like, let's say, mouse position, gadgets used, and barrels exploded. As with any online game, network latency and synchronization issues can affect how actions are recorded and replayed. This obviously makes it even more challenging to kind of like ensure that the replay truly reflects the game as it was played. If you remember, these developers came over from DICE, which, you know, did previously work on the Battlefield titles, and they had actually the particular same issues to face as well, because notice how we haven't had a kill cam mode in the Battlefield titles. Obviously, the finals is now the bread and butter and life cycle for these developers, which means that they're not going to be forced or pressured into making, the finals 2, the finals DLC, etc. And, you know, they're forced to stick to a tight deadline. It's a lot more relaxed here. So we actually have a quote from Rob saying, "It is something we will make at some point for sure, and we realize it's important." This is basically showing us, the players, that Embark are definitely in this game for the long run. People are also showing me the content creators saying the finals is dying, but, you know, they still post update videos and other stuff for all them views. It's quite strange that they wouldn't swap over to another game, even though they're saying the game is dying. Now, the next topic is obviously progression, and you guys know that I've been really forward-facing in having systems in our games of sponsors and keeping that kind of player journey alive. Dizzard92 asked, is the account level going to be extended again? Maybe you can introduce something like a prestige system. Now, account level basically means that little number on the top right of your screen in the menu, which is essentially called your career level. Most people are currently stuck on 50, as that is the maximum level that you can reach, and people want more paths in the game to kind of feel like they're progressing. Now, I will actually give credit to Embark here, because they have done actually a good job with the contract system. Yes, some contracts might be frustrating, but the actual idea of it entirely, I think we can all agree, is good. I like that it slowly unlocks as well, so it kind of paces players to not kind of speedrun this feature, and it gives you something to actually look forward to. However, we're talking about player progression, not player objectives. And Rob states that, in the long run, we don't want there to be an end to your progress. In the future, we could absolutely add more career levels. So the statement here is basically saying we don't want there to be an end, and that could obviously hint towards some prestige system, because if there's no end, then obviously the task would get pretty repetitive, but if it's prestige, then they could add a kind of modifier or extra additions to make the task even harder for a reward for those players that do grind the game entirely to continue leveling up. Prestige awards could obviously be modifications to the player cards, having, you know, different styles, for example. Okay, next up is talking about the ranked rewards, which the Drugbug says, will diamond ranked rewards be obtainable sometime in the future again, and what will happen when you run out of weapons to receive diamond? Now, the answer from him is very simply no. You will not ever be able to get the previous diamond weapons, and then we will never run out. Why do people not ask about Ruby? And if you didn't know, there used to be, back in the earlier days of the finals, a small teaser of a new tier of ranked called Ruby, which I'm assuming is one above Diamond. This Ruby rank could be for the hyper competitive players, which may be in the top, let's say 500 for example, instead of having it at a set limit, which gives more incentive for casual competitive players to want to play more after reaching Diamond 4. Again, the whole limited skins topic comes up. I think that this is absolutely fine. Yes, it's really annoying. I mean, you know, maybe myself, I might not even be able to reach top 500 when Ruby comes out. You know, at the same time as I've got to run a community on my Discord, I've got to reply to comments for you guys, I've got to make videos, and I have obviously a full-time job as well. You know, I've had to sacrifice sleep, so it's just not possible for me. But I do agree that at some point you would need to reward or incentivize those players who are grinding ranked in a very hard competitive environment, so both sides of the coin are equal, right? I kind of get it. There was also some great responses to other topics, such as questions related to the developer's journey at Embark. So what I'll do is I'll leave a link in the description for you guys to check out some of the other comments and replies from Rob and Gustav. If you guys want to help me, I'm also looking for an awesome question here. What is your #1 feature you're looking forward to seeing for Season 3? I'd love to discuss this with you and maybe make a video off the back of these topics. So feel free to comment your ideas. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching once again. That is all from me. As always, my name is Synthix, and I'll see you on the podium.